I found a free collection on Craigslist. It was a trap. I've always been the kind of guy who trusts people a little too much. Maybe that's why I got into reselling in the first place. You meet interesting folks, you hear cool stories, and sometimes, if you're lucky, you find a piece of history that someone else thinks is just trash. I've been flipping vintage audio gear and vinyl records for about 5 years now. It started as a side hustle to pay off my student loans, but eventually it became my main source of income. I know the market. I know that a sealed copy of Dark Side of the Moon can pay my rent for a month. I know that old Marantz receivers are worth their weight in gold. But I also know the golden rule of the internet. If it seems too good to be true, it usually is. I broke that rule last Tuesday. And because I broke that rule, I don't sleep with the lights off anymore. I've moved apartments, I've changed my phone number, and I traded in my truck because I couldn't stand the thought of anyone recognizing it. What I'm about to tell you is the reason why I will never, ever answer a Craigslist ad again. It was around 11:30 p.m. I was doing my usual late-night scroll through Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and OfferUp. To be honest, business had been slow. I was sitting on a pile of inventory that wasn't moving, and rent was due in 3 days. I was desperate for a quick flip, something with a high profit margin, that I could move fast. That's when I saw it. The title was simple, almost lazy. Grandfather's Vinyl Collection. 60s, 70s rock and jazz. Free to a good home. My heart literally skipped a beat. Free is a magic word in my line of work, but usually it means scratched up polka records or Christmas albums nobody wants. But then I clicked on the photos. They were blurry, taken in low light, but I knew what I was looking at. I saw original Blue Note jazz pressings. I saw the Beatles' Butcher cover, which, if you know vinyl, is worth thousands. I saw Zeppelin, Sabbath, Coltrane. It was easily $10,000 worth of vinyl, sitting in cardboard boxes in a dimly lit garage. I read the description. My grandfather passed away last week. We are clearing out the house to sell. I don't have time to list these individually, and I don't want them going to a reseller who will just gouge people. I want them to go to someone who actually loves music. First come, first served. Garage side door is unlocked. Come take them. 442 Oak Haven Lane. I froze. The address was about 45 minutes away, out in the sticks near the edge of the county line. A part of me, the rational part, screamed that this was weird. Who gives away 10 grand worth of merchandise just to save time? And leaving the door unlocked? It felt wrong, but then the desperate part of my brain took over. I thought, maybe they're just rich. Maybe they just don't care about the money. If I don't go now, someone else will be there by morning. I didn't even email them. I grabbed my keys, put on my shoes, and ran out the door. I didn't tell my girlfriend where I was going because I wanted to surprise her with the money I'd make. That was my first mistake. The drive started out normal enough, just highway lights and late-night radio. But as I got closer to the address, the surroundings changed. I exited the highway and found myself on a 2-lane back road that wound through miles of dense forest. The cell service on my phone dropped to 1 bar, then to no service, then bounced back to 1. The GPS was lagging, telling me to turn after I'd already passed the street. I finally turned onto Oak Haven Lane around 12:45 a.m. I expected an old farmhouse or a rundown estate. Instead, it was one of those new upper-middle-class developments. You know the type. Huge houses that all look exactly the same. Perfectly manicured lawns, overly bright streetlights. But it was a ghost town. Half the lots were empty. Just dirt patches where houses were supposed to be built. The houses that were built looked dark. No porch lights. No cars in the driveways. It felt like a model neighborhood that nobody actually lived in. I rolled slowly down the street, checking the house numbers. 438, 440. It was a large, gray, 2-story house at the very end of the cul-de-sac. It was backed up right against the woods. The driveway was empty. The house was completely pitch black, except for one single light. There was a detached garage to the right of the house. A faint, sickly yellow light was spilling out of the side window, cutting through the fog that had started to settle on the grass. I parked my truck on the street, not in the driveway. I don't know why I did that. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe deep down I wanted a quick getaway route. I cut the engine silence. Usually in the suburbs you hear something. A distant highway, an AC unit humming, a dog barking. Here, Nothing. Just the dead silence of the woods and the ticking of my truck's engine cooling down. I sat there for a full minute, just staring at that side door. The ad said it was unlocked. "Come take them." I grabbed my flashlight, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the truck. The walk up the driveway felt like it took an hour. The concrete was wet with dew. My footsteps sounded impossibly loud. I reached the side door of the garage. I raised my hand to knock, but then I remembered the ad. First come, first served. If I knocked, would I wake the grieving family? Would they change their minds? I tried the handle. It turned with a soft click. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking a little. "I'm here for the records." The garage smelled old, not like a normal garage with oil and gasoline. It smelled like bleach and stale, stagnant water. The yellow light came from a single, bare bulb hanging from a cord in the center of the ceiling. It was swaying slightly, casting moving shadows against the walls. The garage was empty. No lawnmower, no tools on the walls, no boxes of vinyl. Just concrete walls and a single, small cardboard box sitting directly under the hanging light. I walked toward it, confusion washing over me. Had someone beaten me to it? Was this the leftovers? I knelt down next to the box. It was a crisp new moving box. I used my car key to slice the tape and open the flaps. It was empty. Well, almost empty. Sitting at the very bottom, right in the center, was a baby monitor. An old yellowed plastic unit from the 90s. The little red power LED was blinking rhythmically. Blink, blink, blink. I stared at it, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. Why would someone leave a baby monitor in a box? Then the speaker crackled. Static hissed through the garage, loud in the silence. And then a voice. It was a wet, raspy whisper. It sounded like someone who hadn't used their vocal cords in years. Closer. I froze. The hair on my arm stood up so fast it hurt. I looked around the garage. I was alone. The static crackled again. I said, "Come closer, Brian." My heart stopped. My name. They used my name. My name wasn't on the Craigslist ad. I hadn't emailed them. My marketplace profile uses a pseudonym. There was absolutely no way a stranger should know my name. "I like your blue jacket, Brian," the voice wheezed. I looked down. I was wearing my blue North Face windbreaker. They weren't just knowing my name. They were watching me. Right now. I spun around, looking for a camera, looking for a window. That's when I looked up. Above the garage was an unfinished storage loft. There were floorboards with gaps between them. Through the gaps in the wood, directly above where I was kneeling, I saw an eye. A wide, unblinking human eye, pressed against the crack in the floorboard, staring straight down at me. And then, a drop of something wet fell from the crack and landed on my hand. I didn't look at it. I didn't scream. My body just reacted. I scrambled backward, my sneakers screeching on the concrete. From above me, the floorboards creaked. A heavy thudding sound like someone scrambling to their feet. "Don't leave, Brian," the voice screamed from the monitor. No longer a whisper, but a guttural, angry roar. "We just started!" I heard the sound of a door slamming open somewhere inside the house, connected to the garage. Heavy footsteps, boot steps, began thundering down a wooden staircase. I threw myself at the side door, bursting out into the cold night air. I sprinted down the driveway, my lungs burning. I fumbled for my keys. I dropped them. Clatter. I heard the garage door behind me slam open. Shit, shit, shit. I screamed. I dove for the keys, scraped my knuckles against the asphalt, and jammed the key into the door lock. I risked a glance back. Standing in the doorway of the garage was a silhouette. It was a man, huge, maybe 6'5". He was wearing something. It looked like a butcher's apron, but it was dark and stained. And in his hand, he was holding something long and metallic. I threw myself into the driver's seat and locked the door, just as he started sprinting down the driveway toward me. He was fast. Unnaturally fast for a guy that size. I jammed the key in the ignition and turned it. Click, click, click. The engine didn't turn over. "No, no, no, come on." I smashed the steering wheel. The man was 10 feet away. I could see his face now in the moonlight. He was smiling. His teeth were black. I turned the key again, pumping the gas pedal. Vroom! The truck roared to life. I slammed it into drive and peeled out, tires smoking. I didn't check for traffic. I didn't check my mirrors. I just floored it. As I sped away, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The man was standing in the middle of the street, illuminated by my taillights. He wasn't chasing me anymore. He was just waving. A slow, calm wave. I drove at 90 miles an hour until I hit the main highway. I didn't go home. I drove to a 24-hour diner 3 towns over and sat in a booth, shaking until the sun came up. I went to the police the next morning. I gave them the address. I told them everything. They sent a patrol car out to check 442 Oak Haven Lane. They called me back 2 hours later. They told me that the house at that address had been foreclosed on 3 years ago. It had been empty ever since. There was no vinyl collection. There was no baby monitor. But they did find one thing. In the garage on the dusty floor, they found footprints. 2 sets. One set was sneakers, mine. The other set was bare feet. But the footprints weren't on the ground floor. They found hundreds of barefoot prints in the attic space above the garage. And they found a sleeping bag, dozens of empty food wrappers, and photos. Photos of me walking into my apartment building, photos of me at the grocery store, photos of me loading packages into my truck at the post office. Whoever that was, they hadn't just put up a fake ad. They had been stalking me for weeks. They knew I flipped vinyl. They knew exactly what bait to use to get me to come to a secluded location, alone at night. I don't resell anymore. I got a boring office job. I live in a building with a doorman and security cameras. But sometimes when I'm lying in bed at night and the house is quiet, I swear I can hear that static sound. And I wonder if he's still out there, waiting for the next person to answer the ad. So please listen to me. If you see a deal online that looks too good to be true, just keep scrolling. Because the price you pay might be a lot more than just money.